Math 1332, Chapter 7, Consumer Mathematics, Section 1, Percents, Video 2, Converting from Percents to Fractions and Decimals. In the previous video, I mentioned that I'm going to try to keep my videos to 10 minutes, and I got a timer to keep me on track. And so sometimes I will have to do a part 2 for a video as opposed to making one long video. To quickly summarize what happened in video 1, we exposed the fact that percent means per 100. We came up with a very basic strategy for converting percents to fractions by simply removing the percent sign and writing the number over 100. And then we did a few examples where the biggest issue on most of them was reducing. We also saw some that had decimals that we had to fix by doing some trickery. But there are some other situations which require a little bit of explaining. For example, in other cases, your percent will be a fraction or a mixed number, and there's an easy way around that. For example, let's convert 8 1/4% to a fraction. Now, the standard thing to do is to just put your percent number over 100. But if you're dealing with a mixed number, like 8 1/4%, or a fraction like 2/3, there's one move you may want to do first. And I'm going to go ahead and type this. And this may seem a little bit weird, but trust me, makes it easier. If your percent is a mixed number, rewrite it as an improper fraction first. So we're going to start this one by taking the 8 1/4%, or just the 8 1/4, excuse me, I wanted that to be blue, and writing it as an improper fraction. If you've forgotten how to change a mixed number into an improper fraction, all you have to do is multiply the denominator times the numerator, so 4 times 8. Multiply the denominator times the whole number, and then add to that the numerator. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 1 is 33. So as an improper fraction, this is 33 over 4. I don't like the word improper there. It makes it sound like it's wrong, but it's just the word it's used to describe it as opposed to proper fraction. All right, so what do you do once you change the mixed number into an improper fraction? Well, then you just follow your procedure for converting a percent into a decimal. A percent into a fraction. 33/4% becomes 33/4 over 100, because percent means per 100. But now we're in a slight dilemma because we want a reduced fraction that has whole numbers on both sides, and the top is not a whole number, it's 33/4. There's a couple of ways out of a fraction inside of a fraction, but the easiest way in this case, multiply both sides of the big fraction by the denominator of the little fraction. And what that does is it sets up a cancellation right there, leaving just a 33 on top. And on the bottom, we have 4 times 100, which is 400. At this point, we have a ratio of whole numbers, but we got to check to make sure that we can't reduce it. 33 will only reduce by 3 and 11. 400 is divisible by neither 3 nor 11. This fraction is completely reduced. This is our percent as a fraction. As far as converting 2/3% to a fraction, it's pretty much the same song and dance. The main difference is 2/3 is not a mixed number, so I don't have to worry about converting it from a mixed number into an improper fraction. I can just start with 2/3% and put the 2/3 over 100. But again, leaving fractions inside of fractions is always considered incomplete. And so we can eliminate the little fraction on top by multiplying both sides of the big fraction by 3, which would cancel the 3's and leave us just a 2 on top. On the bottom, we get 100 times 3, which is 300. This will reduce because both 2 and 300 are divisible by 2, leaving us 1 over 150. So when you see a percent that already contains a fraction, don't panic. If it's a mixed number, change it to an improper fraction. Then put that over 100. Do a little bit of multiplying to get rid of the little fraction inside the big fraction, and then reduce your answer. It's predictable and frankly, fairly straightforward. We're going to wrap up this video by talking about converting percents to decimals, because this video and the part one that preceded it was about starting with a percent and turning it into a different number. Converting percents to decimals is much easier than converting percents to fractions. All you have to remember is the following. Every fraction is just a division problem. As such, you just have to divide the percent by 100 to convert it to a decimal. Now, I know some of you are saying, but that's not what I was taught. Instead, I do this and that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. That's why I got something covered up on the bottom. But 13.5% literally means 13.5 over 100, which is a division problem. It's 13.5 divided by 100. So you can get out a calculator to do the arithmetic. 13.5 divided by 100 ends up being 0.135. Same thing with 20%. 20% means 20 per 100, which means 20 divided by 100. And if you get out the calculator of your choice, 0.2. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'll leave it like that. Now, some of you are thinking, that's not what I was taught. What I was taught is to move a decimal 2 places to the left. And you know what? That's okay. Because the net result of dividing by 100 is that the decimal moves 2 places to the left of where it currently is. In a number like 20 that doesn't have a decimal written, it's implied to be at the end. And if we move it 2 places to the left, then we get 0.20, but the 0 at the end is not really necessary, which is why it's not there. So you may have noticed that all you're doing is moving the decimal 2 places to the left. And if you want to say, I'm not dividing, I'm going to move 2 decimals to the left, you're welcome to do that. However, here's a warning. If you know that there's a time to move just a decimal 2 places to the left, then you also know there's a time when you move the decimal 2 places to the right. So if all you're trying to do is memorize, you better make sure you know when to move it to the left and to the right. And if you forget, you better either get lucky or have a backup plan. The backup plan is when you're converting to a decimal, a percent means per 100, which means divided by 100, which will always take care of the decimal place for you without having to remember, is it left or is it right? So if you just want to move it, I hope you remember to move it in the correct direction, but the justification is percent means per 100, and dividing by 100 has the effect of moving a decimal place 2 places to the left. Let's just take a look at a few more and we'll wrap up this video. If it goes over 10 minutes, it'll be just a little bit. Convert 1.75% to a decimal. Well, now that I've let the move the decimal to the left out of the bag, let's go ahead and do that. Oh no, I don't have enough room to move it over 2 places to the left. Well, if there's not 2 digits to the left of the decimal, just append a 0 in the front of it and then move it. 0.0175. And you may be wondering, do I have to write the 0 to the left of the decimal? I always prefer, I hope I did that. Yeah, I always prefer to put a 0 to the left of a decimal when there's no whole number part. And the reason is real simple. If you got decimals mixed with words and sentences, and you don't have a number on both sides of the decimal, you might mistake it for a period. So by putting a 0 in front of it, it makes it crystal clear that that is a decimal and not a period. Convert 6 2/5% to a decimal. All right, here we are with fractions again. And you might be thinking, am I going to do the same thing I did over here? Well, you could. But if we did the same thing we did over there, it would turn into a fraction. And we want a decimal. And you might be thinking, aha, but a fraction is a division problem, so I divide and I get the decimal. And you're correct. But think about it. If I'm going to divide a fraction to turn it into a decimal, I can either do it now at the beginning, or I can wait and do it at the end. If I do it now, I don't have to do any more work with the fraction. If I wait until the end, I have to do work with the fraction all the way to the end and then turn it into a decimal. So your choices are get rid of the fraction at the beginning or get rid of the fraction at the end. Most people would say get rid of the fraction at the beginning. So to convert 6 2/5% to a decimal, the first thing I would recommend is to divide 2 divided by 5 to get 0.4. Now be careful. This was 6 2/5. So this implies, look at me using symbolic logic. This implies that 6 2/5 is equal to 6.4. Okay? But this implies that 6.4% is equal to, and now move the decimal 2 places to the left to get 0.064. Haven't highlighted my answers, and I realized I've surpassed the 10-minute mark, but we'll be done here shortly. Plus, I don't want a part 3. All right, so if you're converting a percent to a decimal, and that percent contains fractions, you are within your rights to turn the fraction into a decimal right away before moving the decimal place. So what could go wrong? Convert 8 1/12% to a decimal, round your final answer to 4 decimal places. Well, this is just like the previous problem, except it's not. Because if you divide 1 by 12, you get 0.083 repeating. It's a non-terminating decimal, it repeats. Well, 1 divided by 12 equals that decimal implies that 8 1/12 is equal to 8.083 repeating. And this implies that 8 1/12% is equal to, if we move the decimal 2 places to the left, 0.08083 repeating. And we're asked to round it to 4 decimal places. In case you forgot how to round, let me add a page to show you this. 0.08083 repeating. Let's write this out, 0.080833333. If you want to round to 4 decimal places, you don't just cut off the numbers after that. You have to look to the right at the next decimal. And you should know the rules for rounding, but in case you don't, here they are. If that next number is less than 5, then you just keep the numbers that are highlighted. But if that next number is 5 or greater, then you round this number, then you move that number up by 1. In this case, the 3 is less than 5, so our approximation, wanted that to be blue. Our decimal approximation is 0.0808, and that would be our final answer. But if that double underlined 3 were 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, then the digit to the left of it, the 8 that the red arrow is pointing to, would go up to the next number. It would go up to 9. So our final answer to this question would be 0.0808. Converting from percents to fractions and decimals is predictable. You just need a plan of attack and you need to follow through with it.